Good day and welcome to the viewing and listening audience to this, the 15th meeting of the Joint Select Committee on Social Services and Public Administration. This is the committee's second hearing with stakeholders pursuant to its examination of the state of technical and vocational education programs and their contribution to achieving the developmental goals of Trinidad and Tobago. Members of the public are invited to submit their comments and/or questions to the Parliament's social media platforms, including YouTube channel, ParlView, or via Facebook and/or Twitter. Today, of course, we are going through our second hearing, focusing on the examination of the state of tech voc and education programs, and as we said before, and their contribution to achieving the developmental goals of Trinidad and Tobago. The stakeholders with us today include the following: the University of Trinidad and Tobago, UTT, representative of MIC, Institute of Technology, and Advanced Solutions Technical Institute. The inquiry objectives include the following: one, to examine the scope and quality of TVET programs available in Trinidad and Tobago, to assess whether TVET programs are aligned to meet the country's developmental goals, and three, to evaluate the strategies and measures that are being adopted by the state to sustain and promote the enrollment of young persons in TVET programs. We have representatives from the three entities with us, but before I do that, let me just do some housekeeping and indicate that I am the committee's chairman, and the members include the following. Three are unable to be with us today. They have conflicting engagements. They are the vice chairman, MP Roger Monroe, Mr. Esmond Ford, MP, and also Mr. Ruhan Sinanan, who is also a member. All three have conflicting engagements, but we are happy to have the following members with us who I'll invite to introduce themselves. MP Vandana Mohit, Member Mohit, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Member Nakid, good morning.
Good morning to all those that have signed on. Looking forward to a productive session.
Thank you. Good morning, Member Beckles. And also Member Singh will be rejoining us in good stead. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the stakeholder groups and their representatives to you. We'll ask the leads on each of the groups to introduce their teams and also to present brief opening remarks, not exceeding 2 minutes at this time. We will start with University of Trinidad and Tobago and Professor Stephen Joseph, who is the Assistant Vice President of Undergraduate Studies. Professor Joseph, go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Very happy to be part of this forum. I want to introduce the UTT team. With me is Mr. Rasif Ali, and he's an instructor in the Mechanical Engineering NETD program. And we have Dr. Barbara Constance, who is attached to the education program at UTT.
You can go ahead, Professor Joseph, and deliver your opening remarks, if you care to at this time.
Yes, well, UTT has, as you might know, plays a very important role in the TVET program, particularly in the area of teacher education and training. You would recall that a few years ago, John D. and Sando Tech were handed over to UTT, and so we continue the teacher education program at UTT. We also have a number of NETD programs that are quite well established, and so we have a number of students pursuing diplomas in mechanical engineering, electrical, and so on. And these are also TVET areas. We do have fashion. We have food technology as well. The ECIAF campus provides that kind of support for food technology. So we are well entrenched in the TVET program.
Thank you, Professor Joseph. We move now to the officials from MIC Institute of Technology. And I hope I don't mispronounce your name, Mr. Nathan Langaini. Is that how it's pronounced?
Hi, good morning, Mr. Langain.
Mr. Langain, sorry about Mr. Nathan Langain, who is the Assistant General Manager Trading, and he can introduce his team and deliver the opening remarks, please. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Let me send apologies for Mr. Langain. He had a prior engagement, so I am holding on in his position. I am Candace Austin, Assistant General Manager of Training, Student Support Services. My team today, we have Mr. Ryan Dionarine, our Manager from Quality, and we have Dr. Victoria Cunningham, our Manager for Curriculum.
All right, Ms. Austin, would you be delivering the opening remarks on behalf of MIC?
Yes, I would.
Go ahead, please.
Sure. So MIC's contribution to the development of our nation, our citizens, is a great one, and it's a role that we take quite seriously. Similar to UTT, we too have also inherited a few programs from John D, and we also inherited the MUS program. So there has been collaboration and inheritance throughout the years. We have continued to adapt and innovate as time has passed, and especially post-COVID, we continue to expand in our resources in terms of how we treat with the new learning environment and the online platform, and even expanding into maybe areas of entrepreneurship, because we see the disconnect from when you learn the trade and taking your skill area and making it into a business. So we look forward to the conversation today, and I'm sure a lot will come out from all the other stakeholders as well.
Thank you, Ms. Austin, I appreciate it. And now we move to the officials, well, the official from Advanced Solutions Technical Institute. It's just, who are not with us at this time, I understand, but we can also come back to them. Okay, so we can start the official interface at this time. Just before I go to Member Mohit, I'd like to ask a general question of both groups before us. And the inquiry is focused on examining tech TVET programs and their contribution to achieving the developmental goals of Trinidad and Tobago. So I'll start with Ms. Austin, and you can direct which of your team you think can answer this, and then Professor Stephen at UTT. And how you think the institution is doing in shifting the mindset of the population, because the Secretariat from the Parliament did a very impressive study with some young persons. And among the information that was gleaned from that was that there is a perception about tech, rock, and TVET programs in the country. And there's a feeling that it's either an extra source of income, or in some of their estimations, not something that they could get into full-time, or not something they had the training to take into a business. So in the context of its contribution to the GDP of Trinidad and Tobago and the development, do you think that the programs are positioned adequately enough to attract the people that you want, the cohort that you want, to enter the workplace in Trinidad and Tobago with the objectives stated? If I could start with Ms. Austin on that, or any of your team that you'd like to assign, and then Professor Joseph from UTT.
Okay, sure. So in terms of tech work, I would admit that the marketing of the tech work courses would need to be revamped. There is a perception that if my child is not academically inclined, I can push my child towards a tech work course. I'll send you to do plumbing or something with hands, something where you can work with your hands. So in terms of the mindset, we need to market the tech work differently as a viable option, not just for those that are, on the hands-on side, but everybody can access the tech work. In terms of the income, I have made a note here. A lot of the income coming in as well for our graduates, they don't, in terms of the graduate data, they don't stay in the field as well. So a lot of our graduates that maybe did welding or electrical, you know, you'll bounce them up in groceries. They're not working in the field, or maybe they're doing it as a side hustle. So,
but have you done any research to find out why? Because have you ever tried to hire a plumber or mason and see what you have to pay and how difficult it is to get somebody who has a high skill level? So it's not a side hustle in terms of the cost for the service, but haven't we been able to make the transition to telegraph to the population this is a lucrative, legitimate endeavor?
Yeah, that would also help in our diversification. Yeah, and there is a gap. I would admit there is a gap between learning the skill and becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Professor Joseph. You're still muted. Please unmute.
Yes, sorry about that. You know, there is this general perception by the public that TechVoc is for people who cannot achieve academically. Now, at UTT, our programs say quite the opposite. And I will ask Mr. Ali to talk a little bit about the NETD programs, which form part of TechVoc. But I just want to say now that our involvement in training teachers, the teachers who teach TechVoc in the school, is a very important role for UTT. And over the years, we have trained almost all the teachers who actually teach students in the school. And so UTT presents this hope for upward mobility, because people can do the TechVoc at the MIC level and the NESC level, get into UTT and pursue degree programs that can easily articulate into a master's program and PhD if they wish. So this is what really we're hoping to represent to the public, that there is a path, a clear path for people who might want to take TechVoc to the very highest level. But Mr. Ali can talk a little bit more about what actually happens in the NETD programs.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Joseph. Okay, let me introduce myself. I'm Rasif Ali. I'm a discipline leader of the NETD program Mechanical at UTT. As far as I've seen from the past years, in fact, our intake at UTT every year is over 100 students at the NETD program. And these students that came in, they are anxious about this program. They don't see themselves like this is our alternative then. The moment they leave the CXC, with the 5 CXC, English, Math, Physics, they apply to UTT, to the NETD program, and they see a future. In fact, that is why our numbers are so high in the mechanical program, because that is like, so it is not like they feel like they are not good enough for them career, but there is a ready market for this NETD mechanical, electrical, and even civil here in Trinidad. And for the past, in fact, our cohort right now is 24. 24 batches of students have graduated from UTT, and most of them, I would say, are working, and they are working like in the plants at Point Lisas, in all the manufacturing throughout Trinidad and Tobago. So I would say right now we are on good grounds as far as the NETD program at UTT and the TVEC in general. And just to add to that, let's add that our students at UTT are fitting in quite comfortably in any other industry in Trinidad. Just prior to I coming to UTT, I was in the industry, and we were actually looking we were looking for UTT graduates rather than other institutions then, because we saw that UTT had something in addition to other institutions, which they had a practical base at UTT, and that was a big advantage. So if I could close off there, any comments?
No, well, I just want to bring Dr. Constance in the conversation, because she also has been liaising with the Ministry of Education regarding our TechVoc program. So Dr. Constance, perhaps you can share some of the discussions. I know that at some point, we were negotiating with the Ministry of Education to consider having scholarships, offering scholarships for students who might want to get into the tech work stream, at this
I'm going to ask if you could just put a pause. We'll bring Dr. Constance in a short while. But let me just welcome Member Mohit, because she has the first round of questioning, and then we'll go to Member Naked, and we'll facilitate Dr. Constance and that information that you've advised us that she has for us. So Member Mohit, go ahead, please.
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, based on where this conversation is going and what was stated in terms of the opening remarks by Mr. Ali, as well as Professor Joseph, and at the same time, MIC, as it relates to the gap of learning a skill and becoming an entrepreneur, and on the other hand, UTT stating that, they are on good grounds. My first question would be based on the submission, which indicated that National Engineering Technician Diploma in Mechanical Engineering and Electrical Engineering is the most pursued TVET program. Mr. Ali or Professor Joseph, what in your estimation can you state makes this program attractive to persons?
Yeah, I think Mr. Ali could answer that. Yes.
Okay. There's several reasons. In fact, first of all, mechanical, there's a lot of vacancies right now in industries for mechanical. So most students finishing the CXC with English, Math, Physics, they tend to come to UTT to do the mechanical because they see a ready market for jobs. Also, they could also go and branch into their own business. It's like they could go in a garage, set up a garage with our diploma. And also, remember, this diploma is qualified them to go to a degree, because instead of keep, a student completing diploma is qualified to go on to the BSc program. So, as I said, there are a number of reasons why students might choose this, because they see a lot of options available for them.
So you're basically saying that there's room for growth.
Correct. Yes.
So that's the attraction. All right. Well, in terms of your submission, it stated that there were some challenges with regards to access of sharing labs. But despite that, students were able to complete their disciplines. Can you elaborate a little bit on the challenges faced regarding the TVET equipment and infrastructure at your institution? And at the same time, can you state for us what remedial actions are being implemented to rectify these challenges which were stated?
Okay, fine. Okay, as Professor Joseph indicated, San Fernando Technical and John Lee is under the ambit of UTT. Now, as you all know, those are old institutions, going back way over almost 40 years or 30 years. So actually the lab equipment at those facilities need upgrading. And I know Professor Joseph advised me that there's ongoing talks to upgrade it. But the one at Point Lisas, which is a recent campus, I must say the lab facility is up to mark, is up to standard. So sometimes we shuttle students from the campuses to Point Lisas to make sure the labs is up to standard when time to complete it. But for now, we are looking at targeting and improving the standard at San Fernando and John Lee as best as possible there. But the students are not compromised at this point in time.
But you are just in the talking stage. Is it that funding is posing a challenge as it relates to these upgrades?
Maybe I could ask Professor Joseph to come in here.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We depend, of course, as you know, it's no secret, heavily on government subvention and so on, the PSIP for funds, and that is not always forthcoming. So therefore, we are hamstrung in some regard. But we soldier on, and we try to be creative in facilitating the needs of our students.
Professor Joseph, as it relates to, this is concerning PSIP, but as it relates to funding itself, funding to UTT has been reduced over the years. Maybe you would like to tell us a little bit how this reduction, has impacted the university's ability to efficiently administer your TVET courses and programs?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. we get funding largely for paying salaries, right? Teacher salaries. And I'm advised by our finance people that we have a 4 million shortfall with that alone. So, I think that impacts negatively on our ability to hire the staff, the requisite staff, to really push the tech work. So if we don't have enough funding to pay our teachers, then that's a big problem right there. All right. We're not even going to get into the PSIP and the length of time that it takes to be approved. So,
as it relates to what you explained in terms of not having enough funding for teachers, do you have adequate staff to carry out these TVET courses and programs at this point?
Yes, I think we do have. I mean, there's always need for improvement, but we have a group of dedicated people who double up their services and work, more than they should to get a job done. But I can't say that we have enough. We certainly do need. And if we can get some more persons in those areas, that will be fine. I mean, our data, the last time we checked, I think we had just about 12 faculty members to do the NETD programs, right? And those programs carry about quite a few hundreds, I think, at least 300 or 400 persons. Right, and those faculty members also teach in other areas as well. So funding really is a big deal for us.
Ms. Sally, before I complete, you mentioned over 100 students, and am I correct to say 24 batches graduated?
Sure.
If you were to have these funding available in terms of your staffing to properly secure your staffing, would you say that you would have had more batches of students graduating and more students enrolled in these programs?
That's a difficult question to answer in the sense that our numbers of graduates, okay, I wouldn't say it was affected by our staff. Okay, right now we have 12 instructors in the mechanical program, and we have 100 students. So getting more instructors won't really increase the number of graduates. Increasing in number of instructors will increase the delivery program, the quality, and so on. But it won't affect the numbers as such.
Sure. In terms of engagement and collaboration, have you all UTT sought to engage and collaborate with Ministry of Education and tech work training institutions such as MIC, who are here with us, with a view to increasing the diversity and the scope of tech work training opportunities available in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, absolutely. For quite a few years now, we've been liaising with MIC. They provide some training, and I think we brokered a deal with them for them to send their teachers to us so that we can do the upgrade in terms of training. We are also in talks with NESC, who's really anxious to send their instructors to UTT for training, because as you know, teachers are supposed to teach, have qualifications one level above the areas that they teach. And in these institutions, some of the instructors I know in NESC are teaching at the diploma level, and some of them do not have degrees. So UTT presents an opportunity for that kind of upgrade.
Sure. And one final question, maybe either of you can answer. In terms of your projected success rate, how far behind are you from that?
Success in terms of?
Success rate in terms of your TVOC courses and programs. Because I know you're counting your students, you're counting your batches of graduates, you're counting who are working at the plant in terms of the industries. So probably during the course of each year, you'll have a success rate that you're targeting. So how far behind are you at this point from your success, your targeted success rate?
Well, I think we're doing pretty well with the NETD. With the Bachelor of Education, right now we are almost halting that program while we review it. We are in talks with the Ministry of Education, and so we are sort of adding some new dimensions to the program to attract students. But right now, we would have trained almost all the people who would have come from the John D. Institution and Sando Tech. And so we are now looking to see whether we can attract brand new people straight out from school to come in to do our programs. And to do that, we have to work closely with the NETD group as well as the education group. So for education, teacher training, we are way behind time. And you know, the Ministry of Education needs well-trained teachers to teach the tech work in the schools.
Sure.
Okay, just to add to Professor Joseph, and then interesting question, but Ms. Moore just raised in that you look at success rate. Well, we are looking at also improving the competency. Because right now we are looking at accrediting the diploma in the NETD with the IET, which is the Institute of Engineering and Technology from UK. In fact, this year we'll have a site visit where right now our diploma is accredited with ACTT, as you all know. So as far as success rate is concerned, we are looking at graduating a student now who could be accredited worldwide. So June this year, we'll have a visit from them, and most likely we'll get accredited with that body. And so this is a plus for the institution, and a plus for the student, and a plus for the program. And it is that success rate we're looking at now in being the program being accredited worldwide.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Manaki, you had a question holding?
Yes, I had a couple of questions based on what we were talking about, the perception.
Go ahead, please. That's fine.
Okay, Chairman. To any one of the UTT representatives, I've done some research, Switzerland and Austria in particular, and that perception emanates from some systemic deficiencies, it seems like, because as far as I know, UTT is tertiary education. And if we look at Switzerland and Austria, they have tech work as early as what we would call here Form 3. There's some symbiotic relationship between the normal academia and tech work as early as Form 3. That alone will change the perception that we currently have among the population. I mean, no matter what kind of public relations that we would advocate or what kind of commercial management we try or public relations, that perception, which is so important in order for us to get some kind of progress in tech work, we would have to have some kind of systemic changes within the secondary education, where we integrate tech work as early as Form 3, from what I've seen from my research. What comments would you all have to make on that observation?
Yeah, you're spot on, and you're quite right. In order for tech work to have the kind of respectability that it should, some greater attempts must be made to introduce tech work as a viable subject. And I know that happens at some level, because I mean, there's always been tech work from Form 1, you know. But again, I think the gap here is in training or having adequately trained teachers at the secondary level to really implement a good tech work program, right? And I think that the Ministry of Education is aware of that. And I took a peep into the strategic plan and so for 22 to 27. And I think that is a very important item on the agenda.
Well, it's interesting you said, Professor Joseph. I know Dr. Constance was going to comment on the perception issue earlier. I don't know if she wants to come in now before we go to Member Beckers, but remember, Naked makes a great point. And I will tell you, when I did my undergrad, my major is behavioral science and psychology. But part of what you had to do, Nanju, is you had to do upholstery, electrical.
Yes.
You had to choose one to graduate. So there was, and I had a poor perception of it going into it. And I loved it afterward. I chose upholstery, by the way. And you had to actually make something.
Yes.
Or you couldn't graduate with your academic degree. So Member Nackett makes a great point that if it's introduced in secondary school, you have a greater chance of having persons integrating it and deciding, well, I want to do this at tertiary level. I don't know if Dr. Constance wants to comment on that. And why is the education ministry not making those linkages? Because you could supply the teachers.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I would like to also underscore what Member Nackett is saying, because if we understand the perception is there from childhood, and we are talking about at the home, we are talking about societal views, there is not a particular advertisement that targets children to say, okay, this is a particular path that you can probably take. So by the time they leave primary school, they are thinking, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher. Few children from the primary level, if you ask them, in fact, if parents have a way of asking children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the children say a doctor, lawyer. If that child says a plumber, what is the response from the parents?
But if they understand that a plumber, a great plumber, is probably making more than 50% of the attorneys in the country.
Yes, if they would understand, and this is what we need to show them when we have well-trained teachers at the secondary level and they start teaching now, they need to also encourage students, show them that this is a viable option for the future, for your future, for the country. Because we're not just talking about individual development, we are talking about nationwide development, right? And I think the Ministry of Education, we need to have some talks across the different areas, schools, society, business places, and we need to have a more collaborative approach to this, because I still think, yes, there are people out there who get it, but there are not enough persons who get it. And we started at the schools. Now, the Ministry of Education does have what we call the criteria for assessment of qualifications for teaching at the tech work levels. We here at the UTT, we are now trying to revisit that in the areas of electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, technical drawing and drafting, food and nutrition, and fashion. Now, we are hoping that we can really get this program off the ground. As we mentioned earlier, the same staff that we are using right now for this at the CEP for teacher training, this is the same staff that will be involved in the TVET teacher training also, and same staff involved for everything. So earlier when we spoke about funding, if you look at any top university in the world, if systems are to really run and go as we would have it go, we need that funding for labs, funding for teaching, funding for equipment. We're also talking about time for research, because no university with its salt just has people teaching without doing sound research. So this is where we are sort of at the moment in a nutshell.
Thank you. And I'm going to get to innovation. Member Beckles, you had a question before I go back to Member Nackett?
Quickly, I just wanted to ask on the issue of whether you are fairly satisfied about the issue of the accreditation, that we would be successful. And the other one has to do with what sort of influences and data collection as it relates to this direction of tech work that Member Nackett asked. In other words, what are we doing to actually create greater influences in the minds of children about going in a particular direction? And what is the relationship between that and the Ministry of Education? So we can actually, when we collect the data, we can actually see whether or not you have some sort of transition that is actually taking place.
Okay, well, I can speak on the accreditation. In fact, we are very comfortable that we will be approved for at least for the next 3 years. In fact, there's a normal accreditation period that IT will give to any institution for the first time, because we have all the documentation up to standard. We have all the labs and all the instructor facilities and qualification. So we are pretty sure when they visit us in June, we will be approved for the next 3 years. Yeah.
Member Nakid, you had other questions? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
All right. Okay. Before I go into the questions listed for MIC, I was looking at some of the budget allocations, and I was just interested because I've had a chance to visit some of these areas. So I am looking at some of the budget allocations for the period 2021-2022 for infrastructural upgrades at CoStat at some of the facilities. Have they been completed?
Is this for UTT or MIC?
You assigned me MIC, Chairman.
Okay, all right. Well, we don't have to introduce the members of MIC, so I'm going to ask you to pause on that question and just welcome, as a matter of housekeeping, the officials from Advanced Solutions Technical Institute, Dr. Ansel Peters, Ms. Lima Ramdeen, and Ms. Nicola Humphrey. We'll get to you in a short while. Just before you go into MIC, Member Nakid, a couple issues came up when we were talking to UTT, especially regarding when Member Mohit raised the issue of funding. And the question to UTT is, how much has GATE funding affected enrollment, if at all? Because we spoke about the funding for teachers, but GATE funding is also something that will impact enrollment, no doubt. It has in other universities. Has it impacted your institution in terms of enrollment numbers?
Yes, well, yes, in the first iteration, when funding was just stopped for, there was a limitation on how many programs you can take. And I think that impacted us. But I think there's a revision there now where you can get funding for diploma as well as the bachelor's. So that is working well for us at the moment. So students know that they can articulate, they can move from the NETD into the bachelor's stream. Before that, there was a little panic among students, and we started to see some negative outcomes there.
How much would you say it affected your enrollment at that time?
Well, we had an enrollment of close to 7,000 students. All right, 6,000 to 7,000. Now we are hovering over just about 5,000. So there is some kind of impact. I can't tell you the distribution.
Well, if it went from 7 to 5, that is not some kind of impact. That is a significant impact.
Yeah, but I just wanted to be a little more granular, but I don't have the data for me for the TechVoc and how it impacts TechVoc.
Understood. And how much collaboration, just before I go to Member Nakid and introduce the members of MIC for the second round of questioning, how much collaboration is done with the Ministry of Planning? Because the topic of this inquiry is the examination of the state of TechVoc or TVET and contribution to achieving developmental goals. There is a lot of conversation about solar plant coming up, BP Shell Lighthouse, I think, which is supposed to be the largest in the Caribbean, one. So are you having those discussions with Ministry of Planning to start training people in solar planet, photovoltaics, repairs, installations, etc.? Because you can't wait till it comes on stream, and then look to train people afterwards. Part one of the question, the world is moving digital. How much emphasis is being placed on software development, ICT training, networking, etc., because that is also a burgeoning area in the world. Any responses to those? And are those conversations taking place in a timely manner to capitalize on what is coming in the country?
Yes, absolutely. I know that the president has been very busy making those kinds of linkages and having those kinds of discussions. And UTT is really involved in a couple of those energy-related projects. But I do know that we are at the, maybe I shouldn't advertise this yet, but in terms of cybersecurity and so on, we have actively started to make move towards creating a Caribbean cyber institute. Right now, that's still in the burgeoning stages. But just to give you an example of how we are thinking ahead and trying to see whether we can meet the needs of, what's happening, what is trending currently.
All right, and finally, before we go to MIC, the issue of jobs for your graduates and the certification they get. I know, if I'm not mistaken, they're CBQ rated, so which means they can work throughout the Caribbean. Is that correct?
Yes. Mr. Ali?
Yes, that is correct.
How much emphasis is placed on forming linkages between countries throughout the Caribbean? We see what's happening in Guyana presently. It's an economic explosion. Money is flowing in and out of Guyana very significantly. And I would imagine that your graduates, because of the nature of your institution and the training you do, should be looking at Guyana and other countries like that, or you should be making the linkages for them in terms of encouraging more enrollment and looking at the prospects for employment across the region through CMSC, et cetera, for your graduates. Is that a conversation at all?
I would say yes, because right now we have a number of companies that communicate with UTT directly and say they are looking for graduates. In fact, there was about 5 companies right now who have sent us lists that they want. So we communicate with them. We recommend the graduates with our top graduates. So we have our linkages with companies between UTT and for those graduates, well, those students who graduate from the program. So we have that. But as far as UTT finding job for them, I mean, that's the link we find them. Like we actually liaise with other companies to find job for our graduates then.
All right, thank you. The persons here from MIC are Ms. Candice Austin, Mr. Ryan Dionarine, and Dr. Victoria Cunningham. Member Naked, it's over to you and MIC.
Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Okay, well, we know this is a human development issue primarily, but it's interesting. I was looking at some of the budget allocations. So before we get into those questions listed, primarily on the human development, I'm looking at some of the funding just to ensure for the public's benefit that everything has been up to mark, as I'm sure they have been. I'm looking at some of the allocations, especially in terms of NESC, what has been listed here. In 2020, 1.3 million, 2021, 7.8 million for upgrades and so forth. Have these that are upgrades and purchase of infrastructure, have they been completed? Fully optimized?
Well, we can speak to MIC's PSIP, and yes, our projects have been completed 100%.
And I guess later on I can speak, Chairman, to YTEP and NESC and so forth, as to get that assurance that these budget allocations have been optimized.
Well, they're not with us today, but we can certainly write them and ask them.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. So as far as coming to what we are here for, which is the human development, the funding that each institution, well, primarily MIC, is it sufficient, you feel, to fulfill your institution's mandate?
So in terms of funding, no, the short answer is no. More funding is needed in terms of technological development and adapting to the growing demands of the industry. If we are training for the industry, we have to keep up with the industry and the new technology that industry partners are utilizing in their machine shops.
And you, of course, that increased allocation that you would ask for would involve some of the infrastructural upgrades and so that we just spoke about, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Mr. Dionor,
but that's why sorry, go on, please.
Oh, yeah. So if I may, we look at our history, you would see that some 10 years ago, MIC would have been operating around 20 centers throughout the country with, on average, between 3,000 to 5,000 trainees in any given year. Fast forward to today, and we operate 10 centers with around, we typically have between 1,000 to 1,200 students, full-time students at any given time, with more making up our part-time and short courses offerings. And so that has, the reduction in funding has significantly impacted our reach within Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I have noticed that your enrollment has decreased, as has been stated before. So the question therefore comes, if there has been additional allocations and you are still needing even more allocations, there seems to be somewhat of a disconnect there. You know, I don't know if you can help me with that, because your enrollment has decreased. There has been some upgrades that I asked you, and you said that they were optimized, in fact, optimized at MIC. And you said now that there's still more, there's more needed. Who exactly do you go to for that increased allocation? And how would you justify that?
So for the increased allocation, we at MIC here, we realized that we needed to innovate. And we needed to become less dependent on the funding from the government. So we have expanded into a short course unit, and we have expanded into options where we can bring in funding for ourselves. But
for example, tell us.
For expanding into the region, I know we were discussing making connections in the region as well. We have done some training in St. Martin and St. Vincent. We will tap into Guyana. We also did some training in Grenada as well. But going back to the numbers of the trainees, remember, we are unique because we have a wide variety of programs and levels. So we have from level 1 to level 4. So, and each program has different demands in terms of material and resources, equipment.
Of course, of course.
And then we have the level 1 and level 2. Some of our programs have stipends, which is a very hefty part of the budget as well.
I cannot hear you at all.
We're sounding very soft. I don't know if you're close to the microphone, from the microphone, or you could speak up just a bit, please.
If I may add, is that better?
Not much, unfortunately. Is it a microphone or camera situation? That might be better, yes. We'll try. Go ahead, please.
Let me change this. Yes, if I may add, our level 1 and level 2 programs, and even our higher program, well, because we deal our intake, we accept our students with 3 O-levels, maths, English, and 1 other. For our higher programs, and we have to work with them. In other words, a lot of them now level 1 and level 2 may not come to us with anything. But we can't throw our people at sea. We have to work with what we get from the secondary schools. And
of course,
they come with us fraught with a lot of social issues. And economic issues as well. So in order to treat with them, we have a stipend attached to our programs to focus, to help them with their immediate needs. In addition to that, what we have done, we have, we studied, we recognize what the problems we are having with. So what we have done, we have developed a life skill curriculum that will cater for the needs of our students. So it will focus on help them develop the socio-economic, the socio-psychological, and the socio-emotional issues. The reason for this is so that we can give them that support so that they can get through their programs successfully. In addition to that, what we have been working on, we have a placement unit that we have been working really hard with to get our trainees placed within the industry. But remember, as was mentioned by Ms. Austin, we have different level programs. So our level 1, level 2, that will cater for the lower strata. And then we have the level 3 and level 4 program. These programs are German-based. And one of the philosophy behind this program is that we have an apprenticeship type program. So it's not like the other programs that you may be familiar with, maybe at UTT or so. So they come 1 year for a portion of training and then we place them within industry. And while let's say for 2 years or so, while they're working in the industry for 3 days, they come back to us and we continue the training for 2 days a week. Now we have made such attempts because we recognize the needs of our students, but clearly what we have seen since I've started with MIC, let's say 2018, the amount of centers in operation have decreased. I remember at one time when I came in, we had about 18 centers. I understand there were as much as 20, but right now we operate in just 10 centers. Our student intake has reduced, not because they don't want to come to us, it's because we cannot facilitate a large number because we have a stipend attached. We give them the free lunches, and we're trying to get with the technology. So now with those who come in the program, we give them a tablet so that we could facilitate online blended learning formats. So we are trying as an institution, but there's only so much we can do. One of the issues that was mentioned before when we talk about industry. Now, because of shortfall and funding, we have equipment. This equipment, they can be pretty expensive, and some of them could be pretty outdated, but they work well in teaching students the basic concepts and the basic skills. And therefore, the only way we can actually compensate for introducing them to the newer technology, we have to take advantage of the placement industry. So when they go out industry, they are more exposed as to what's happening out there. When they come back to us, of course, they might tell us what you have is old, but nonetheless, it works. It works. We introduce the basic concept and we're training them for industry. So we let industry.
Mr. Owens, just before Mr. Manakit continues, could you give us a sense of, for those looking and listening, what are the more popular programs that are accessed at MIC? And what's the type of conversion? Because from what you indicated, you have a great apprenticeship program with several industries. And what is the conversion from training to actually getting jobs with those locations that your students are able to apprentice with during the course of their training?
All right, I will pass that to Mr. Devine.
Thank you.
We typically see a greater level of demand for our welding-based programs.
Cannot hear you.
Sorry, this positioning. Can you hear me better now?
Go ahead, please.
Sure. So again, typically we see higher levels of interest in welding-based and electrical.
We hardly hearing you for some whatever.
Is that corner? Is that corner?
This is quite interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Sorry about that. Apologies for that. So we see again, just to repeat, higher levels of interest in welding programs and electrical programs. So typically across levels, we would see greater enrollment and greater applications in those areas from level 1 through level 4. As noted by Mrs. Austin in her opening statements, as it regards getting employment in those particular areas. We typically see in our tracer studies, etc., persons would have completed level 1 and level 2 typically would be holding some enter fully into the area. A lot of them hold down some full-time jobs, be it in clerical areas, unrelated areas, and utilize the skills that they have developed at level 1 and level 2 to run a side business. And that was one of the driving factors between us developing our entrepreneurship program and now introducing it from level 1 through level 4, as well as we currently partner with the NEDCO with our BizStart program and help our trainees while they're in training to develop their business plans, register their businesses, etc. At level 3 and level 4, we see the NSDP Journeyman program replacement. We do see a higher level of employment in the field. A lot of it driven by the fact that many of them are employed by the placement sites following their training. So that certainly contributes to where there's greater levels of employment in the field at the higher levels of study compared to the lower levels of study.
Thank you. Member Nakil, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Your representative said something that was very, very interesting and something that we do not approach in a holistic fashion in Trinidad and Tobago. She talked about people who come into the MIC program with straitened circumstances, emotionally, psychologically, because we know their backgrounds that unfortunately that a lot of the people who come into the MIC program, have you reached out to any organizations that deal with mental illness, with psychological support to help you with these students that come to you in such a state?
Certainly, if I may. So we have internally our guidance and counseling unit that is staffed with trained psychologists and counselors. However, they do maintain open relationships with some of the national and smaller bodies, Childline, etc. Should there be instances where our capacities are insufficient to deal with some of the issues and challenges that present themselves. Also, we have had instances where we have allowed or we have made arrangements for our trainees to be included in our employee assistance program so that they can receive that type of support as needed. So to respond to the question, yes, we do try to maintain those connections to these bodies. We absolutely need to.
Okay, and then this is a follow-up. Do you maintain any kind of data, statistics on especially those specific cases that could guide us going forward in probably drafting policy?
Sure, so we do have regular reporting of statistical data on the numbers of cases as well as the presenting issues. And that allows us to, we use that data currently to guide the development of intervention programs. So we would have our workshops, etc., for our trainees in those areas that seem, that are presenting more frequently. And that's something that can certainly be provided if.
Excellent. That'll be excellent if the chair, you can provide to the chair. I must, based on what you all have said, of course, I will do my research further. I must commend you all for working what it seems like in very straitened circumstances, cutting of funding and trying to navigate what must be a very, very difficult area. So kudos based on what you've said. Of course, I will do my research just to verify. Have you provided for us the number of graduates from the period 2017 to 2022? Is that possible?
Certainly. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it can be provided.
We do have it.
Excellent. As well as those that transition from your training, MIC training, into actual employment. Would you have that as well?
Yes, we have results from our tracer studies. I believe we have tracer studies due this year. So the current results that we have maybe a couple of years time, because we typically do it on a triannual basis. And that was
it's just to give you an update. MIC would have provided to us enrollment 2014 and 15, 4,904, graduates 2,891. From 16 to 17, 3,680 enrolled, 2,290 graduated. So there's some data available in your package.
Yeah, that's why I asked. I saw that, Chair. That's why I asked from 2017 to 22. 17 to 22. That hasn't been provided. Have you been able to identify exactly how many students were able to successfully launch businesses after completing your skill-based programs?
Okay, so as it regards that, in our tracer studies previously, we did monitor entrepreneurial activity. So we have some data now. Our tracer studies typically have a response rate of around one third of the trainee population. So we can't speak for the entire population, but we can extrapolate the data that we do have. With the implementation of our aerial program and our BizStart program, we are now more actively tracking. So we should be able to, over the past couple of years, provide more detail into the specific businesses that have been launched and their activities. So we are.
So let me be clear. You're saying, let me just to be clear, because your voice is very low. So sorry, I apologize if I'm asking you something redundant. Just to be clear, are you saying that 1/3 of the students that graduate from your skill-based programs, 1/3 of them launch their own businesses?
No. What I'm saying is that when we conduct our tracer studies, which is the follow-up that we do with our graduates, the response rate that we get is about 1/3. So if we have so out of that 1/3, we'll be able to tell you how many are involved in entrepreneurial activity, and we extrapolate it to the entire population. But as I said, over the last couple of years, with the launch of our entrepreneurship, we are monitoring that activity a bit and working more closely with our trainees. So we should be going forward, be able to provide more or a greater level of detail.
Remember, Naki, we have time for one more question from you, and before you
one
move
more
on
question. Okay, then obviously the logical follow-up to that would be, other than the others, not taking into account that 1/3 that respond, that 2/3 that do not respond, is there any way to track if they have been employed, what has happened to them, have they fallen out of the system?
We get a lot of, and this is really anecdotal because we do maintain a lot of partnerships with industry. So we do get feedback from those partners in terms of they have some of our graduates. In addition to that, we still continue to try to reach out to those graduates that we have not been able to get in contact with over the past couple of years, particularly.
But stick up in right there. But the reason I'm asking, in public's interest, is that out of those 2/3 that do not respond, the public would be interested to know how many of them would fall by the wayside. How many of them, therefore, we'd have to worry about, especially with the increasing crime rate that we've seen and so forth. So in the public interest, I'm sure you would be concerned as well. I mean, is there any way that we can start to really find out and verify what happened to those people that we lose track of in the system?
I know that in addition to our attempts, we do emails, calls, etc. There has been at a national level the launch of the NTVET Research Council, and last year we would have worked towards a national tracer study for TVET. in general to kind of bolster what the institutions, because MIC will do our tracer studies, as with UTT, as with the NESC, so to bolster that there has been a national effort to help address some of those gaps in data. But at this point, it is still a work in progress. And we still have some challenges with that, getting in contact with some of our past trainees and getting them involved in the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Naked. Member Mohit, you had a follow-up question for MIC? You're muted.
Asked and answered, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, thank you for the officials from MIC. Just a question, do you institutions collaborate or do you think you're competing with each other?
We certainly collaborate. Right now, we have a collaboration with the UTT at the EKIAF location on the Youth Agriculture and Homestead program. That's in partnership, of course, with MYDNS and Ministry of Agriculture. As noted, I think, by Professor Joseph, we also collaborate to have our, so there's an arrangement in place so that our instructors can be trained. And I know that there are certainly discussions around alignment of our lower level programs, level 3 programs with their degree programs to allow our trainees to have that ability to matriculate. So we certainly collaborate.
May I also add my commendations to your social intervention component of your program, because I think it's highly commendable, and recognizing that the student catchment, because of the perception in some instances, naturally gravitate to these programs, and providing the intervention is extremely commendable. Kudos to you also. We'd like to at this time introduce the members, the officials from the Advanced Solutions Technical Institute, Dr. Ansel Peters, who is the Chief Executive Officer and the Academic Dean, Ms. Lima Ramdeen, Support Director, and Ms. Nicola Humphrey, Recruitment Officer and Sales Executive. Dr. Peters, could you just give us a sense of the institution, what it's about for those who may not know, so we get a sense of what we're dealing with here in terms of the general public, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and to the board and panel.
Is it that you can't turn on your camera at this time?
Yes, let me.
Thank you. All right.
Is it on? Good.
I would hope so. We're seeing you.
Yes. Allow me to say that a lot of things that are being shared is very foreign to me, in the sense that I am the chairman. I am the owner of Advanced Solutions Technical Institute. We have been around for the past 20-something years. And we are what you call a hardcore technical institution. When everybody else was teaching, was basically not involved in TVET, we were involved in TVET. Our foundation streams directly from the industry. We cover programs in alternative energy, solar, data communication, fiber optics, wireless. I mean, some of the more hardcore programs, IP cameras, all the major areas we covered in those particular areas as a vocational college. So when there were institutions that were still teaching IT, we were basically in foundation in these particular areas. So some of what is being taught now, we are way ahead of that particular area. My facility is over 7,000 square feet of lab. My lab is bigger than my institution. The foundation of what
you're starting to sound like an advertisement now.
much.
So we appreciate your acumen, your facilities, but give us a sense of your student body, what your student intake is, etc.
We are pretty small. We are not as UTT. We are not as some of the MIC large. My student body is most as large as 150 students. The numbers that you are calling we are nowhere in that range. For the year, I might have at least about 700 to 800 students. So we are not in that lead in terms of some of the larger schools that what they are offering, some of the facilities that they are offering to students. Part of it that we offer, yes, but we are nowhere in that range. But in terms
are your programs gate funded or are they privately funded?
Yes, we are registered with ACTT. We have at least about 4 of programs that are gated, and we are privately funded. So the majority of our training that we offer are privately.
So as this, of the 700-800 students, what are the more popular programs that are being accessed at your institution?
Fiber, security, wireless communication, photovoltaic, cell phone repairs, IP installation, robotics. These are some of the mainstream programs.
So you could be a division of UTT then.
UTT will not associate with us.
I am just joking, sir. I didn't ask for that.
Yes, so we will not.
We're not here to compete. We're here to get information. So why we invited you is to get a sense of if you think the sector is growing in Trinidad and Tobago at the rate it should. If you think that TVET and TechVoc is becoming more prominent and not a second choice for students in the country in terms of the development goals of the country, because you've said that your institution has been around for 27 years, I think it is, or over 20 years. And what you see as the trends over the time your institution has been in existence. So if you could give us a sense of how you see it's evolved and how you think we as a country are evolving with it based on the evolution of the world in TechVoc and technology, etc.
I think we have a long way to go. Very, very, very long way. While there are a lot of statistics being presented in terms of individual advancement, we have had to work with the level of deficiency in these particular areas. Everybody talk TVET at the end of the day, but TVET doesn't speak to industry. TVET has to be an integrative aspect of the industry. So if I have to give my small percentage on this, Mr. Chairman, we have a long way to go in relation. The way we react to technology in our industry, we are very reactive to it. It is not something that comes to us from a sustainable standpoint. It is something that comes to us, hey, there's a demand here, so let's get involved in it. Hey, this is the trend now, so let's get involved in it. And because of that approach to much of what we are doing from a TVET level and from an academia level, there's a lot of gaps in our process. So I will safely say that we have a lot.
What do you think the main gaps are?
I think the academia is one of it, that whole process between the student articulating what is required by the industry. I think people are more focused on numbers. I think people are more focused on the factors of how much people we can get in a class, and we give them some practical skills. But there's one thing to teach a student how to apply a screwdriver, but it's to tell a student what's the purpose of that. That is some of the major problems. We have, let me draw an example. We have a lot of people come out with different levels of certification, but when they come to advanced solutions, and we decide to take them through a photovoltaic training, just to basically install a panel. For mathematical level, there are problems. They struggle. A lot of students, they just want to focus on the practical skills. Don't tell me the reasons why. Don't tell me the hows. Don't tell me the when. Just tell me where the screw go, where that go, where this go. And much of the TVET formulation that we have today is geared towards that direction. So yes, we have some serious issues.
So you're saying that you think their curriculum is used? Is that the sentiment?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
What is the level that your students come in at? Because you mentioned they come in not understanding the theoretical aspect. They're taught, in your opinion, the practical aspect. And I see Mr. Ali and Dr. Constance and Professor, the intensity in their eyes is palpable. What do you think? When they come to your institution, do they come as teenagers? Do they come trained from other institutions and you see gaps? Walk us through why you're saying what you say, please.
Some of them, the teenagers, is easy to handle, to deal with, because we are able to take them through the process. When some of them come from the other institutions, and we have to take them through some of our, let's say they come at a level 1 or a level 2, and we have to take them to a level 3, it's very difficult from an academia level to do a basic a sentence. They can't even construct it. To do a basic essay, there's some major.
I would tell you, sir, I lecture at university, and that is not exclusive to TVET. Okay, so that is not about UTT or MIC. They are engineering.
No. I'm not
they are engineering, medical, law students who cannot write an essay. It is not exclusive. It's a function of parts of the secondary school system, and in some instances, the background of the students. So let's not typecast here.
No. The question that you asked me is to just to share. I didn't say UTT. I didn't say MIC. I'm not talking no school. I'm just talking on the whole, the average concerns that we have. So at the end of the day, I will safely say that there's so much. I mean, I'm hearing everything that you all are saying here, but in reality, when you begin to look at the job market and you begin to look at what is being placed out there, we are in some serious trouble. And gate funding is a whole different issue by itself. That has its cohorts, that has its place where you can help a student, but it has done a lot of damage too.
I think Member Beckles has a question, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Member Beckles, did your hand remain up by mistake, or do you have a question? So give us a sense then. Yeah, go ahead, Member Beckles, please.
Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I mean, I've been listening to the discourse and it sounds a little like we need to have a little bit more collaboration
yes,
and ironing out. At the end of the day, I'm fairly satisfied from listening today that we are all on the same page as it relates to the country, the education. We know that there are some challenges, but I've listened to the data collection, the policy, and it is how we are always mindful that yes, we may have challenges and we may have conflicts. So it's how, and I mean, part of doing this session today is to allow for that kind of interaction and discourse. And at the end of the day, it's always a willingness to allow people to hear, different perspectives, different views, so that this session, I think, allows us, to move forward a little. And I'm quite satisfied, Chairman, that the objective of the exercise and what you have been doing today, and I just want to join with you to say that I too am quite happy to hear, especially as it relates to issue challenges, mental, and how that is working out, because sometimes we ignore that, but COVID has shown us that really that is so critical. So I want to join with you in the congratulations as well for that kind of work that has been done. But most important, to talk about the importance of the willingness for us to collaborate, to hear each other's point of view, and to realize that we are all, I think, genuinely concerned about the direction of Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to tech work and other education issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Beckles. Dr. Sari Peters, I see you have your support director with us, Ms. Ramdeen. Give us a sense of what her role is, and if she could tell us what kind of support that you have found productive in your establishment, and what the response has been to that kind of support. Or she's not on.
Yeah, I don't think she's here at this point in time.
Okay, but you probably could answer on her, if you can. What does a support director in your institution do, and how do you think that is important in terms of getting your cohort intake to the levels you want, both socially and academically and practically?
I think the support director or institution more works from the standpoint of the growing up in relation to the vision of the institution, supporting and as a second marker. She's not directly in recruitment of the search, but more works directly with the directors themselves. So I would not be able to speak for her on that level, but tell you this as much. She's not involved in the recruitment process. It more deals directly with the support of the vision that each department and directors facilitate at different levels. That's what she does.
Given where you see the country is now and your concerns that you articulated earlier on, what do you think would make a significant shift in the mindset of people to TVET? Because the Parliament Secretariat was able to do a focus group before this interface. And some of the, you may have logged on later on than when we presented that. Some of the issues that came up, the primary issues that came up were, one, there was a deficit of programs for older persons, suggesting that maybe many of the programs are targeted to younger people, but persons who maybe at a stage in their life where they want to learn a skill or shift careers are not being accommodated for. 2, there is a deficit, or in some instances, an absence of adequate business training. So when you get a skill, it's one thing, but to start a business or to be entrepreneurial with that skill is something else. And 3, the marketing and awareness programs for these types of programs were some of the main issues that came up in that focus group. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that your institution is providing those solutions, one, and the general space dealing with those? How is the general space dealing with those?
So I agree with the concerns of the panel, and which is true. And I think that we in some way or the other make our own contribution in this particular area to be able to aid in these particular areas and assist. I think that there is a greater need for more collaborations. I think there's a greater need for more in-depth consultation, not just from the higher schools, but smaller schools like us. We have a lot to say and we have a lot to share. And I think that from that standpoint, I think that much can be done in that area. But the other areas, I think I agree with you. And I think that we have done our part to be able to facilitate those areas as much as possible as we can.
Yeah. Professor Joseph, how do you feel about what Dr. Peters has said in terms of his hope for more collaboration between the institutions? Because at the end of the day, as Member Becker said, we all have the same vision: training people, getting people integrated into society in a more productive way, intervening where there are social issues and other issues, so that there's a social aspect to this, there's an academic aspect to this, there's a practical aspect to this, but there's also a developmental aspect to this, personally and nationally.
Yes, absolutely. We are quite open at UTT to collaboration. We, as we heard before, we've been talking to MIC, we have collaborated with NESC, but and we welcome any kind of collaboration from the private institutions. All right. I mean, we have skills, we have expertise that we can share, and we can learn as well from the private institutions. I know that we have a very strong link with our industry partners as well in certain areas, and we can extend that to some of the private institutions if you are interested. In the area of curriculum. I think that came up in your discussion. We can offer, quite a lot of help in terms of curriculum, development, directions, and so on, because there are some areas there, expertise. There is expertise at UTT in that area as well. So we are here ready and open to collaborate.
Ms. Austin from MIC, your response to what Dr. Peters has said in terms of, in his opinion, the requirement for more collaboration, because at the end of the day, sometimes the element of competition can be good, but it can also be, if it's not strategic, it can also not be as productive as we want it.
Yes, that is true. And we, just like UTT, are willing to collaborate and to continue in the collaborative discussions and taking tech work forward.
You all have me feeling like Oprah here, not bringing you together. Anyway, we're closing in now. One of the issues that I think we need to discuss, and I start with Dr. Peters on this, is if there has been a job market assessment for persons who are interested, who can be enticed into being interested, and that it can sustain the level of graduates that all your institutions, and also YTEP and others that may not be with us today, in the way that it moves the country forward strategically and supplies the need for the country. When you think of the manufacturing sector that's growing, when you look at the model that Germany employed 25, 30 years ago, where they moved TVET and TechVoc from the perceptions that exist in Trinidad and Tobago to a primary interest area for 10, 15-year-olds, and what is done for the German economy in terms of the manufacturing sector, Do you, Dr. Peters, why are you shaking your head?
No, I'm listening to this.
And the question is, what will it take for us to make that paradigm shift?
Well, I tend to agree with you.
It's one thing to opine and seem frustrated. It's a completely different thing to add solution and have a discussion and discourse on the way forward.
All right, I tend to agree with you in the sense that before you even seek to get registration or introduce a program, as you would know, being part of ACTT, you have to be able to do a needs analysis first to see if that program, there's a demand for it on the local market. And that has to be justified by a panel by ACTT and otherwise external neutral groups on the outside. So yes, if I'm implementing a program, I will do my needs analysis, check the industry, what demand in that area, if there is a demand at all, what are some of the marketing areas I'm going to look at, how I'm going to gather the students. Yes, that is very, very important to any process or to any recruitment process. So I agree with you.
But has your institution been able to access information or get the information on that needs analysis in terms of a job market assessment for the market in Trinidad and Tobago for specialist areas? And I'll transfer that question to Professor Joseph or Mr. Ali or Dr. Constance or the persons at MIC, because if we don't know the size of the market, not only locally, but Caribbean-wide, which is to me another job market, how are we going to chart the way forward in terms of what needs to be trained, who needs to be trained, what are the areas where we need to increase training, what are the areas we need to reduce training, or we can end up like the attorneys in Trinidad and Tobago with too many attorneys or too many this and too many that, and not serving the needs of the developmental goals of the country. So I'll start with you, Dr. Peters, on that, and then go to Mr. Joseph and the others.
And that exactly what you are saying, Mr. Chairman, is the problem. Exactly what you are saying there. And that's one of the reasons why that pool that you're talking about there, we don't have access to it, as much of it. We just do the best that we can do from a local standpoint, but we do not have that type of data where we can have that level of exposure to know exactly what needs to be done or what we can put out there. If that is available, we will gladly be able to work with the interest groups that are here to be able to assist us in that area. But the answer is no, we don't have that excessive pool.
Thank you. Professor Joseph, do you think, or Dr. Constance, do you think that data exists? Has it been done, that kind of survey?
We do have some insights regarding some of those needs as far as the Ministry of Education is concerned. We are aware that the TechVoc teachers, many of them have been retiring, and there is this gap in terms of getting new, young TechVoc teachers. You know, and the problem really is with training.
But you're speaking about the teachers. I'm referring here to the market for the jobs, specifically. Because it's one thing to have teachers and train people, but if you don't know what the market is, you could be training in a vacuum.
Right, yeah. I think we don't have that kind of information, you know, and I agree that we do need to have better research, market studies, and so on. And so we are just simply working from anecdotal information, you know.
Isn't that interesting that we are before us academic institutions that are supposed to be, as Dr. Constance says, research-based, data-driven, but we lack basic market research information. Mrs. Austin, do you have that kind of information? Or has it been, is it available?
I will speak to that. What we do have, based on our experience, what we have done within the last year, we at MIC, we capitalized on some research that was done between the Ministry of Trade and the TTMA. And based on their findings, they were looking for persons to, to fill the gaps that they found within the manufacturing sector. And that led, with much collaboration, that led to the launch of a new program at MIC. What we did, we take our existing journeyman program, and within the curriculum unit, it is a hybrid program, and we tinkered with it some in order to fulfill the needs of the manufacturing sector. And currently we have almost 1 year now, the mechatronics diploma program, journeyman program, that will be certified by the German Institute. And therefore, we are using what we have, what's out there. So while we may not have the full capacity to body and forget all that data, we are capitalizing on what other ministries have done. We were also able to start a woodworking apprenticeship program, and that started late 2022 based on the very same data. And we have full complement of trainees in those programs. We provide a stipend for them, and within a short space of time, we are collaborating with our industry partners that are our sponsors in order for them to find placement within the working industry. So
thank you. It just dawned on me that we have a vital resource here that I have not addressed, and she's not a stakeholder perhaps, but she's part of the committee. Member Beckers is the Minister of Planning, if I'm not mistaken. Member Beckers, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I don't know if she's with us or in a meeting, but I mean, if she's with us, the Ministry of Planning may have that information, I don't know. Or not, but certainly she's not responded. So, you know, but to me, one of the issues we're clearly dealing with here is because I'm looking at the data as supplied by each of the institutions. Member Beckles is with us. The question that came up.
So what I would do, I don't think I could give you the answer right away, but what I will do is to commit to getting some information from the ministry so that I can submit.
Yeah, because what dawned on me is the inquiry title is about the developmental goals of Trinidad and Tobago. So there must be some sort of strategic approach to this and what the market is projected to need in the short, medium, and long term, so that the institutions can align their programs and train persons to fulfill that sort of need in a data-driven way.
Yeah, so what I will do, I would liaise with the CSO, but I would agree with you that, I mean, one of the things we're trying to focus a lot more in the Ministry of Planning is what you call real-time data and that alignment of which you speak, because clearly it's not just a question of asking the institutions, but what we can provide, what we can share. The CSO now is providing a lot more information, a lot more real-time data. So we would be in a position, I would make the request and forward to you, Mr. Chairman. So
much appreciated.
With the respective institutions.
Thank you so much. We are looking to a 12 noon close today because there's a sitting of the House of Representatives coming up. So we need to clear some way for that. So what I'm going to do at this point is invite the heads of the delegations to deliver their closing comments, unless there's a question from any of the members at this point, Member Naked, Member Beckles, Member Mohit, or anyone else who may have a question to the panel, just quickly. If not, I can go to Professor Joseph of UTT to deliver closing comments or requests. And also, I'd just like to advise any additional information any of you may have, you can submit it to our secretariat in writing. We'd appreciate it greatly. So let's go to Professor Joseph at this time, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think that clearly we need to establish or develop a TVET mindset very early, maybe at the level of the primary school. I think my colleague, Dr. Constance, alluded to that. And if we are to do that, then we need to revise the teacher education program to include courses in entrepreneurial studies and so on. We have already started that in anticipation at UTT, where everybody who enters must do an introduction to entrepreneurial studies. I'm saying that, you know, with greater focus, we need to do our part, and we are prepared to do our part in creating this mindset, which I feel should begin from the primary school level. If we are to change the whole perception of what TVET is about, you know, in our country.
Thank you so much. Can we go to Mrs. Austin from MIC?
Thank you. So we just want to say thanks for the opportunity today, and we look forward to continue collaborating with the other stakeholders. We know that the sector is growing, and we would continue to be aligned to the needs of the country and adapting and attending to the needs of the citizenry in terms of the trainees that come into our programs. Even though with limited resources, we know increased funding would assist, but we would still, go the avenue of addressing the entrepreneurial gap. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I was going to cue to Dr. Is Dr. Peter still with us? Ms. Humphrey, would you like to deliver closing comments on behalf of the Advanced Solutions Technical Institute?
Sure. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are. Go ahead, please. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having us. First of all, some of the things that stood out to me listening is, and I'm leaving with, in the area of collaboration and real-time data, are the two main things that stand out greatly in getting us to that place of development for our citizens to take them from one place to the next. So thank you very much for this forum, and I hope it's something that we will have again soon, in spite of Carnival, but hoping it's something that we will have soon again. So thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of those that were able to be present. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Humphrey. I think Carnival is a wonderful tech rock area also. So it's not in spite of Carnival. Carnival is a wide area for tech rock to flourish and enjoy ourselves within the ambits of the law. We'd like to thank the officials from MIC Institute of Technology, from University of Trinidad and Tobago, and from the Advanced Solutions Technical Institute. I'd also like to thank the committee members and for being with us. Just as a matter of housekeeping, the public is advised that the fourth report of the committee on the inquiry into the mental health and psychosocial services available to the population during the COVID-19 pandemic, with specific focus on measures to curb substance abuse and suicide, was presented in the House of Representatives on April 22nd, 2022, and in the Senate on April 26, 2022. The report is posted on the Parliament's website, www.ttparliament.org, where it can be reviewed and or downloaded. Once again, we'd like to thank all the stakeholders who took time to be with us today. You're advised also, if you have additional information that you wish to supply to the Secretariat, to the committee, to do so to the Secretariat in writing. We'd appreciate that. And the committee members for their continued support and participation, the staff and office of the Parliament for your procedural and logistical support, and to the viewing and listening audience. On behalf of the committee, I thank you for viewing and wish you a wonderful and safe afternoon. Have a great day.